What's your name and what do you do?
My name is Nick Fish, and I'm the president of American Atheists.
And how did you come into that role?
Well, I've been working in the secular community for more than a decade. I started with the Secular Coalition for America, but before that I was working in politics. I worked on the 2008 presidential election down in North Carolina, knocking on thousands of doors, registering voters, all that stuff in the run-up to that election. And then I worked in politics for the next few years and really wanted to get involved in an issue that I felt connected a lot of the through lines for the issues that I cared about. So working on abortion access, working on LGBTQ rights, working on public education, there was one common threat to a lot of those, and that was the threat of what we would now call Christian nationalism or religious extremism that is really permeating a lot of parts of this country. And so I wanted to attack the root cause of that and really work to build bridges to push back on all of that.
Okay. My audience doesn't know a lot about the word humanist or the word atheist. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping you could expound a little bit on those two terms, what they mean and how they fit together or how they're different.
Well, so a lot of times these are mostly questions of self-identity. Atheist means, I think that from a dictionary definition, would mean someone who lacks a belief in God. But most atheists share many more values than that. We always sort of jokingly say that that's the only thing that holds people together, or the only thing that everyone has in common. But that ultimately, something like 90% of atheists, for example, support the right to choose abortion. Something like 95% of atheists support LGBTQ rights. There are a lot of common threads that run through people's identity, and so it's not really meaningful just to say it's this one thing and this one thing only. People share multiple different identities, and that's where humanism comes in as well. I think most atheists would also identify as humanists, just as most humanists would also identify as atheists. So it comes down to a question of what word you're using, what word you're using first. I use atheist because professionally it makes the most sense for me to use it, but also because it's the word that when we ask people if they know what these words mean, most people have an idea of what an atheist is. Unfortunately, not as many people know what a humanist is, and somebody who works with the American Humanist Association would probably have a better definition than me, but humanism, as I understand it, is a positive life stance that embraces the idea that humans have solutions to human problems, that we can make the world a better place through our own actions, and that we want to maximize the well-being of humans and other sentient creatures, protect the environment, work to build a better world. But again, atheists share those values as well. And so this all is kind of wrapped up in self-identity. It's not a dictionary definition where we're trying to put people in one box or another, or where we're not doing taxonomy here of living creatures. We're dealing in messy, self-identifying definitions that people share multiple.
So we're here at a humanist conference for 2023. What are the top priorities of your organization, and why are you here at this conference? What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, well, American Atheists works very closely with the American Humanist Association, just like we work with our partners at the Freedom from Religion Foundation or the Secular Student Alliance or Secular Coalition for America. There are dozens of secular organizations out there that work on these issues, that represent different parts of our community, that focus on different areas of expertise, that really work to accomplish many of the same goals, but have slightly different approaches or have different areas of their primary expertise. So American Atheists focuses primarily on state-level policy work, but we also work at the federal level closely with the American Humanist Association and all the other groups that I just named. The biggest issue that we're confronting right now is the rise of white Christian nationalism, this ideology that weaponizes religion against vulnerable people, against LGBTQ people, against women, against racial minorities, against religious minorities, against people who support separation of church and state, against public schools. And so building these bridges, making sure that we're working in collaboration, that folks know that we're here and supporting one another, I think is a really important way for us to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction, that we're all confronting this existential threat to our nation together. And that's the only way that we can really get the job done.
So I come from a background of white Christian nationalism, fundamentalist, evangelical, missionary Christian family.
Sure.
And it took me probably 20 years to climb up out of that paradigm to get to where I'm at now, which is a humanist atheist activist.
Yep.
What would you say to somebody who's embroiled in such an environment and thinking about what their first steps are to get to where maybe I'm at or somewhere similar on the spectrum of self-identities? How do they do that safely? Where should they go first?
Yeah.
What's your advice to a person who is caught up in Christian nationalism or something similar to it and wants to get out?
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot of ways to do that. It's not everyone who is stepping away from Christian nationalism is stepping away from Christianity. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that we're not out here proselytizing. Obviously, we, American Atheists, the American Humanist Association, we all think you can live a really great life, and a better life, in fact, outside of religion. But we also have really tremendous religious allies. We have people that we work with every single day who see the way that religion is being weaponized, the way that their faith to them is being corrupted and used as a political weapon. And they hate it. They don't believe that their religion should be used this way. They want nothing to do with that. So there are groups like the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Freedom, Christians Against Christian Nationalism, that people can turn to if they're horrified at the way that religion is being used against their loved ones, their LGBTQ loved ones, the women in their lives, the people that they care about, and they don't want any part of that. And so it's not just about leaving behind religion, it's about leaving behind this toxic, really damaging version of religion, this high control, authoritarian version of religion. If, however, you're looking at that and saying, listen, all I see in religion is this high control, authoritarian version of things, and I don't like that. There are a lot of groups out there that can help you take those first steps toward examining your faith, questioning whether or not you actually believe the things that you've been taught. And I think those are things that we should all examine constantly. I think that we as atheists should always be examining our biases, examining the things that we were taught, being skeptical about what we think we know. That's something we should all be doing. And there are groups out there like Recovering from Religion that offer no judgment, they're not trying to proselytize, they're trying to help you process, trying to help you understand your own faith and let you know that there is a path forward. Let you know that there are people and communities out there that are happy to support you and stand with you, whatever choice you make. So those would be sort of the first things that I would look to. But there is a big difference between asking people to leave behind their faith, which is often a core identity for them, something that if you are trying to deconvert them, that they will immediately sort of put up barriers. They'll calcify. They'll say, you're not, and they'll entrench even deeper in some of the more dangerous, damaging ideological points of things. So the nationalism side of white Christian nationalism, or the white side, the racist side of things. But if you offer people judgment-free steps forward and say, look, there are people that share many of your common values and talk about values, that's a way out for a lot of people. That's a way forward. And so I would say, if you're examining this, you're like, I don't know that I'm fully on board with this. There are many, many more Christians who oppose the Christian nationalist ideology than there are white Christian nationalists. So that's a starting point. But then I would also obviously encourage people, examine your faith, ask critical questions. Is it really that unique? Is it really that special? And that's, I think, a bridge out for a lot of people. The idea that their religion isn't actually offering that anything unique or special answers to any questions, the deep, tough questions in life. And so, it sort of depends on the stage of their life that they're in and how far they want to go. And, again, that's offered without judgment because the threat of white Christian nationalism is so extreme right now that we have to start with that. We have to start with urging people away from that ideology. And we can talk a little bit later about the deep theology questions. We can deal with that tomorrow. But right now, this is an existential threat to America. This is an existential threat to the world, in fact. This ideology is being exported and weaponized against people all over the world. So we have to find allies wherever we can.
I want to open it up to you. Do you have anything that you'd like to wrap up with? Any comments, thoughts, observations, wisdom that you want to share?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would just say is, especially for young people, for people that are out on the ground doing work, right in the front lines, fighting these battles, the labels, the boxes that we put ourselves into, they don't care that much. They're not that important to them. They care much more about deed, not creed, right? That's something you hear at a conference like this, or if you listen to the American Ethical Union or humanist groups, they'll talk a lot about deed over creed. And so that's a lot of what we have to focus on, is how to do good work, how to improve the lives of the people around us, how to build strong communities, how to make sure that our neighbors aren't going hungry, to make sure that our friends and loved ones are taken care of. And we can talk about the theology, we can talk about how we self-identify, we can talk about all of those things over a drink, or when we're relaxing, and once we've met those needs of people, when we're done fighting to make sure that somebody who needs an abortion because they're in the middle of a miscarriage and they live in the state of Florida and can't access abortion care because they've signed a ban, or someone who is trans and is looking to simply get counseling, and that treatment is now banned because it's termed as some sort of indoctrination. People are out there dying right now, and the most important thing we can do is work to fix that, and that means getting our hands dirty. That means coming down from these important but ultimately slightly disconnected debates or discussions about theology or about philosophy, and getting out there and doing the work. And those philosophical discussions are important, but they're not the only thing. And right now, I think the priority for my organization, the priority for a lot of young people that we work with and the people on the ground, is making sure that our neighbors are able to live and survive and thrive. And so if that's something that interests you, I would encourage people to get involved. If that's something that's important to you, find a place to get involved. It doesn't matter where. Just get out there, get involved.